Hello and welcome, my name is Hoshiko, and today's Modifier video is all about breaking up your scene's backgrounds with lighting. To get right into things, of course, the way to instantly flatten your image, and what's usually considered a mistake, is to just have your light source right behind the camera. And because we don't really like the look of that generally, what we do to make it look better is by adjusting the camera and the light source so that they aren't aligned. Oftentimes this is done by angling it either to the left or to the right, or having the light coming more top down. Doing that certainly helps a lot, and if we add other aspects of a classic three-point lighting, your image will get a lot less flat and start to look shaped, and will have a lot more design to it overall.
So you can see here the thing that I've warned about in the past, having the light just right behind the camera with no other real light coming in. She has a little bit of an edge from just some bounce in the room, but really it's flat against the wall. The shadows here are just flat against the wall directly behind them, and it's not too flattering. And really their faces are just flattened also because the light is all just so directional. We don't really get much shape. The nose and the side of the face, the nose and the side of the face and the ear, and yeah, it kind of goes around just a little bit, but you're not getting enough of a shadow or a shape to it. And even if you faced all the way forwards, it's flattening the nose against the cheekbones, and just, it doesn't look very good. This is the open face. Now we've moved it off about 40 degrees from behind the camera, and you can see that that does actually make a pretty big difference with this not looking ugly. The shadow's not just like straight behind them, it is less flat, but it's not that much less flat. I mean, by and large, the faces are still being flattened a lot, and we're still pretty flat against the background. It's not that interesting of a look.
What I often talk about here is the choices that we have with light, either soft or hard, distance to the subject, exposure levels to balance contrast, etc. But that isn't the point of today's video. If you look at this image, it looks a lot better for most cases than the initial very flat image that we had. However, check out the background. It's kind of dark, dim, and disappointing all wrapped into one. Yes, our subject stands out from it somewhat, I guess, but it still feels inconsistent, unshaped, and empty, beyond the lack of set design.
So we can see the difference between this setup here and that really flat, the light's just behind the camera. Now it looks much more like a newscast. This looks much more like a movie. This is not the most designed or perfect setup ever, but we're getting this actual key through the silk of that softbox. We're getting a actual fill, and we're getting an actual edge light, and we're shaping the face. This side of the face is going to be a little bit hotter from that edge light, while the fill is trying to make this a lot more even all the way across. And we just get more shape to it. The problem I have with it is that there's nothing really being done about the background because we've focused all of our lighting right here.
So what are we going to do about the background then? Well, first off, I think a big change will come from actually purposefully lighting the background itself. Now, something a lot of people, especially beginning filmmakers and video shooters, don't always consider is how to handle the background. And I think that that's part of this overall issue that I find is that a lot of three-point lighting discussions miss what do we do with our backgrounds.
We're going to add in a light from the key side that is just for the background in particular, so we can manipulate that as well. This can even just be a subtle amount of light to just lift everything a little bit so that your balance between the contrast of the face and the contrast of the background is different. Or you can make it so that it's way brighter and we get more of a high key look. It can be middle key. We can even make it so that it's low key but getting enough exposure.
So if we add some light for the background and have it be from the key side in particular, we end up with something that looks like this. Depending on the type of scene that you're shooting, this background lighting may need to be brighter towards high key or darker towards low key. And in some cases, your lighting might actually need to make the area behind the subject darker, but purposefully. I will get to that in just a moment.
So thinking about the background at all is an important step, but I want to break up the light back here. I want to make it not just kind of even across, with a little bit of a gradient as it gets further away from the lamp, across this surface, this diagonal, in terms of the angle. I want there to be more shape to it. So let's look at a couple different options.
Now, the caveat here, because there's always a caveat with me, is that these are suggestions and discussed points that are artistic notions, not hardline rules. They won't work for every scene, film, video, DP, director, photo, etc., because there are so many individual factors for every story being told. So, to be clear, doing this or not doing this isn't a mistake in of itself. It's a choice for your story dictated by your budget of time and your budget of money. I talk a lot about creating light dark patterns with keys and backgrounds, and this is the first suggestion that I have here. Placing and shaping your background light so that in the camera you have the dark side of the subject against a light background and vice versa. That already breaks up the background a lot, and for many situations, that might be enough to improve your image's dynamics. This suggestion can also be a matter of framing and blocking, which can make it easier to implement overall. But let's make our shot into a medium key look, not specifically a light dark pattern though, and talk about a few simple ways to break up the background. First, let's talk about using a snoot for creating shapes. Now, I have a couple videos about this while-making snoot from a little while ago with a full overview and some examples. If you want to watch those videos, they're linked down below. And really, this tool is one of the most wonderful additions to my lighting kit that I've had in the last year. I really like it for this exact kind of purpose. The snoot's value to me is in the gobos to create shapes that we're using to break up the visual background. With this, we can pick a shape ranging from a window frame to an abstract shape like dots or as just a slash, and dial in a specific focus to feather the edges. Being able to create realistic shapes with gobos can really also help with specific scene environment requirements, like if you're supposed to be in a room that has a lot of window light coming in. Next, and the cheapest option that we have here, is using a reflector to create shapes of light on your background. What I love about this option is that it is really cheap and still effective. Chances are you might already have a reflector, but if you need to pick one up, they're only about $30 to $70 depending on the size that you get, and they're incredibly useful all around. Plus, the 5-in-1 pop-up models not only have multiple options, but they're also very compact and portable. Moving on to our next option, we have the Fresnel. Now, the one I'm using is specifically the Aperture Fresnel, but this should work with pretty much any Fresnel from Airy tungsten Fresnels to any Bowens mount Fresnel. Now here we're going to be getting a little more of a circular shape to our light with the adjustment from flood to spot. We can then change how that light looks falling on the space. The Fresnel is specifically good in my opinion for spaces with lots of details in the background where you want to see some edge contrast. Now the hard light of the Fresnel is also great for faking sunlight through windows, so that's another way to build environmental atmosphere while you're lighting your background in a dynamic way.
And so we can see that even just putting a Fresnel onto that P80S has actually changed the shape of the background. Before it was just the hood and it was kind of just really even all the way across, but now we get this sort of rounded edge right there. And I personally really like that look, but also even it changes the shape of the shadows in terms of how they're being projected onto the wall and onto the surfaces themselves. And once again, this is totally outside of what we're doing for our actors. What we're trying to do is shape the background as much as we're shaping for the performance.
If you're using a more low-key look, the Fresnel may be your key light and you can have it falling on your background past your subject. And in this context, this can give specific hard light, but kind of overall underlit shape to your background that would be an entirely different feeling than if your subject was lit with a softbox and a hair light, and that soft light really fell off before shaping the background at all. That would basically return us to the non-lit background 3-point lighting look that we're trying to make more interesting in the first place. Next up, we have cookies. These are a special light modifier that passes light through cutout shapes to break it up. They are useful in everything from making background lighting less homogeneous to giving the look of foliage, specifically the look of foliage shadows through windows. And something that's really nice is that when combined with a Fresnel, the spot to flood adjustment can be used to adjust the edge sharpness. I have a video about these in particular coming up soon, including how to make a DIY version for yourself. Personally, these are one of my favorite ways to break up background light because of how effective they are at making it less homogeneous. The second to most simple and the second to last option is barn doors. You can use these to shape the light without any lens elements and to create streaks, rectangle shapes, and pockets of light. Barn doors, depending on your lamp and the brand, often work with Fresnels as well. So if you want to combine the two, you get more options. Now, a moment ago, I mentioned that in some cases, your purposeful lighting may be actually to make the background darker. One way to imply darkness, especially great for night scenes, is to have an unlit or underlit background, and then use one of these methods to create a streak of light into the background that creates bright edges that will have a lot of contrast so that the details can be made out within the darkness while not making the contrast of the background shapes that much higher, which visually makes the darkness in the dark areas look darker. That's a lot of dark. It feels kind of counterintuitive, but having a bright edge within an overall dark and slightly underlit frame will make everything appear darker than by simply just having it be underlit. And you'll still retain more of the visuals so that we can see what's going on as well. Now, moderation here is important because this can quickly become an overwhelming amount of unmotivated lighting. Otherwise, I would say that most of these can and maybe even often should be used in conjunction with some generalized lighting for your background for exposure reasons. Now, that could be a space light or that could be a lantern. Now, that is also what I have been doing here, and that does lighten the effect somewhat, but you'll be able to protect your exposure a lot more. And all of these factors will be able to be individually adjusted depending on your scene, equipment, subject, and background. So those are 6 ways to work with your background to create more dynamic and designed, less flat images to tell your story. The light dark pattern, the snoot, the reflector, the Fresnel, and the barn doors, and just using hard light to create bright edges that make your scene feel darker. At some point, I am planning on doing a more in-depth theory type video about why background lighting matters in particular. If you want to pick up any of these tools for your own kit, I have affiliate links down in the video description that really help support this channel and me making these types of videos. If you have any questions about this technique or any of the tools, please leave a comment and I'll see if I can help out. And if you want to learn more about the specific tools I've used, like the Snoot or the Fresnel, I have links to the overview videos and the examples videos that I've made for them also linked in the video description. If you like lighting technique videos like this one, please give the video a like to help me with the YouTube algorithm and to help me reach new viewers who also love lighting. You can subscribe for upcoming videos about tools and techniques for cinematography, lighting, and micro-budget filmmaking. And if you want to support these videos more directly, you can join my Patreon at patreon.com/Hoshiko for only $2. There's also a free tier that just notifies you when I post new videos. Thank you so much to my patrons. I really appreciate your support. You can also connect with me on social media. I have my links to my various and many accounts down below in the video description. Thank you so much for watching my video. I really appreciate it. Please take care of yourself and others this week by wearing a mask in public spaces to reduce illness transmission. And I hope that you have a wonderful week ahead of you. Peace.